Greetings, this is Karen Davino, Superintendent of Schools, along with Dr. Chuck McKay, the Assistant Superintendent of Schools here in Vernon, New Jersey. It is Friday afternoon. We are so excited to be with you again, trying to keep you informed as to what is happening for September. And speaking of September, here we are, 29 days until the children arrive. So if you're a parent and you've decided to send your children back to school, you have 29 days. I know that causes anxiety for so many people.
Sure.
But we are really excited to bring the children back, even though it's under such a different format than we've had before. Just as a reminder, we're putting out a lot of information, but August 5th is when you will need to make a decision whether or not your child will stay at home and learn virtually.
That's right.
Or they will come back and have a schedule with us, and Dr. McKay is going to talk about that in a second. So August 5th, you have time. Please take a look at letters I've written, podcasts that Chuck and I have done. We're going to continue to send out lots of information, Board of Education meetings. We really are trying to be transparent and communicative with our families so you know what to expect when you come back in 29 days.
Exactly. So, one of the things that we did this week is, well, actually this morning, is we have a calendar now, and we put it on our website of Blue and Gold Days so everyone's aware. Now, in Genesis, we'll also have indications of when your children should be coming to school, but we wanted to make sure that everybody saw this calendar. So I want to thank our transportation coordinator, Jamie Van Geltz, who does a wonderful job. And Jamie made sure that this got put on the website this morning. So this is a way to just start to get started with how many days we have left and whether we're ready to go. So that's an important piece.
So don't forget, upcoming on this podcast, Dr. McKay is speaking with Kim Muller, one of our nurses here in the district, along with Debbie Lisa, another one of our nurses in the district. And you'll also see some clips and hear about what's happening with athletics, so some really important things happening today.
Right, so what you're going to see with the video is I interview both of the nurses. Kim Muller has a new role with us.
Yes.
She's the 6th nurse. We've hired an extra nurse. And what she's going to be doing is working on temperatures. So she's going to talk about offloading protocol when students are getting off the bus.
Right.
And then, of course, Debbie's going to talk about what happens when someone is identified with a fever.
Right.
And then what would be the process that we went through. So take a look at that because that's really important. And then, as Ms. Davino pointed out, the next part, Matt Shea did some filming. And we show how the athletes get their temperature taken. And this will give you a sense of what's happening. So
this is happening already is our point, right?
Exactly.
To see what the sense of that is and how parents are navigating through that. It's a really useful piece.
Right, so in each of these videos, we're trying to segment the one piece that puts the puzzle together that gets us back to school.
Yes.
So hopefully take a look at these pieces and see what you think. Okay, hi folks. One of the pieces that we've been talking about is the safety protocol when students come into school. So next week we'll talk a little bit about the buses and what happens on the buses. But right now I want to introduce you to two of the nurses from our district who will be directly involved in the process as we move forward. Kim Muller, to my left, has been hired as our 6th nurse. We have 5 buildings with students in it, and Kim's going to be working some of the protocol in the early mornings in each of the buildings as we check the students in. And Debbie Lisa is our nurse at Lounsbury Hollow, and she's going to talk about the process as we move forward. So the first piece, Kim, is your role and what we'll do when the students come off the buses. So we're going to set up a team, and they'll be checking temperatures. So how's this going to work?
What will happen is the students will come off the buses, and there is a team in each school that will be doing temperature checks on each student as they come off the bus before they enter the building. If for some reason there is a temperature on the student of 100.0 or higher, they are going to be then pulled to the side, and we will have to recheck them in 10 minutes. If it ends up being after a 10-minute period they still have a fever, then what will happen is they will go into the nurse's office in the building that they're in. There is a separate room for them, so they're not with the other students. And then they will be, the nurse in the building then will be getting into contact with the parents, guardians of the student, and they will have to come and pick their child up if they do have a fever.
Before we get into Deb's role, because you're handing it off to a school nurse, what is your role then collecting this information? Because it is important to have this information.
What I will do is the team will report to me in each of the buildings, and then what I will do is I will record if there's any abnormalities, and I have to report to Dr. McKay yourself and to Ms. Davino on a daily basis. And as far as if there's any abnormalities during the day, I will be alerted to that, and then also will alert you if there's students that have to go home with fevers or any other of the symptoms that we are looking for with the COVID-19.
And the rest of the day, you'll be working as a team with some of the other nurses in the buildings to make sure that
Yes,
they're helped
once
out.
everybody's in their buildings, then I will be going to each of the buildings and with the nurses spending a little time in each of the buildings and going through them if there's any issues with the students during that time. If there's a student that has to be isolated from the other students, I will be dealing with that student so the nurses can deal with the students on their everyday basis, and I will deal with
Right.
the
Because on an everyday basis, Deb, there's 100 other things happening.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that the nurses were very concerned about is this student and how much effort went into making sure that they were quarantined, and we got in contact with the parents. So what happens when one of our students shows up with a fever?
Well, like Kim said, there is a waiting area that will be designated in each of the schools.
Absolutely.
Where the children will be isolated from the other students. What we'll do at that point is we'll alert the parent if they have a fever. And a student can have a fever for a whole lot of reasons.
Yes.
It's not necessarily COVID. And our policy has always been that any student with a fever of 100 or higher is sent home.
Right.
So at that point, based upon symptoms that the student may have, we'll make a recommendation that the parent take them home, follow up with their primary care physician. And if a student does exhibit symptoms that are COVID-like with the fever, we will require a note from the doctor in order for them to return to school.
Yeah, good. Safeguarding all around. We've worked intensely hard with our nurses, Kathy Toth being our lead nurse and you guys working together. One of the things that I'm really pleased about is the teamwork that happens. And I assume when some of these diagnoses are happening, nurses will be calling back and forth and making sure that they were all in the loop.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and that information, of course, because of HIPAA laws, we're not be able to get out. But if there is a confirmed COVID, then we have a whole protocol as a central office administration and as the school building administration to let people know, and of course that would lead to other things, you know, as we well know. But I just wanted people to know
Yes.
that there's a basic process in the morning in which we're temperature checking in each of the buildings. So if a child is dropped off by a parent, their temperature would be checked right away. If not coming off the bus, they would be checked. And then, of course, if the child shows a fever, there'll be a quarantining period until we can figure out exactly what it is, right, in the nurse's
Exactly.
office.
I do want to let you know that the teachers will be performing self-check assessment at home, which will require them to do their own temperatures at home. We are not, as of right now, we are not going to be checking the teachers, the staff, the faculty as they are coming into the building.
But-
They will be doing that at home and reporting to us whether they have a fever or not. They
Exactly.
wouldn't be in school.
And we want that done early, just so everybody knows, so that we can get subs for that day. If we check them here and then they're running a fever and we send them home, at that late point we don't have a substitute. So we want them to check early. When they sign in, they'll sign something saying that they've done their check, and our teachers will be here. So, all right, thank you very much for all of your help
Thank
and
you.
all of the hard work that you've been doing. It's been great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Right, so when a student exits their parent's car, they walk up to the building, and of course, that's where their temperature is going to be taken. So we have the trainers taking their temperature, and of course, the nurses taking their temperature. And when the temperature comes back and it's normal, then you'll see Mr. Foley give the thumbs up to the parents so that the parents can now exit. And this is a process that's been developed by NJSIA, and we're very happy for it. And we're going to be using it in our schools during the year. So we wanted you to see what that looked like. And as you can see, we've really got things going at the high school with football and soccer and all of our other sports, because our students are now starting to get back to some semblance of normal, which of course we applaud. We thank Mr. Foley for all of his hard work.
So thank you so much for joining us. We want to talk a little bit about what you're going to see next. Like Dr. McKay said, we're trying to give you little pieces of information during each podcast. We know this reopening is completely overwhelming.
Absolutely.
It's very challenging. Like I said, it causes anxiety and stress in so many people, particularly parents. So next week, what are we going to see?
We're going to talk about virtual learning, and we're going to talk about design learning. It's a topic that we brought up last evening, and we started to talk about it. We'll talk with Russ and Vinny and talk about what we're looking for from the virtual experience for our students so that people can make a good decision on August 5th. So that's very important. But also we're going to do some transportation, look. So,
Yes, we think also for families at home, it might help for you to understand how we clean and sanitize our buses, what it looks like for children to get on and off the bus, and what some of those protocols might look like, because the two decisions that parents have to make by August 5th are whether or not you're utilizing virtual instruction, so that
Yes,
speaks to the
that's it.
instructional design piece, that video that you're going to do with Mr. Rogers and Mr. Gagliostro next
Yes.
week. The other piece parents have to decide is, are they comfortable sending their child on a bus where they have to wear a mask? So we want you to see what that looks like, and of course, if not, you can opt into transporting your child on your own. We know that's a terrible inconvenience, but we feel we have to do masks on the bus because even though we're social distancing and half of our population is on the bus, students are still in close proximity, and we really don't want to be. We want to make sure the masks are on and that everybody is safe. So those two things next week.
Exactly, and we can't say it enough. When half the population is involved or less, it's going to look very different
Yes.
and much more spaced out. So there's the safety piece that we keep talking about. So we'll see you next week.